ITF Bangalore chapter. First of all, I must thank Rajiv and Nitin to rope me into this and give me an opportunity to present myself to this group. While I might have met individuals from ICF, this is the first time I'm formally getting involved in an ICF meeting, virtually though. So thank you very much, Nitin, and through you to Rajiv as well. So thank you for some of those words you spoke about myself. I think what I will do is, if it is okay, I will just go ahead and share my small presentation I have, and then we can kick off on going forward. And in the slide, I will share with you how I have constructed this session, which according to me, my presentation should not run for more than 40 minutes. That will leave about 20 minutes for discussions on whatever the participants would feel interesting about what I spoke. And before I start, I should like to make one confession. I am primarily a practitioner, so I'm not a great theorist. So those of you who are looking forward to hearing some theories from me on team coaching, I would say at the beginning that you might be disappointed. I'm primarily a practitioner and an application-oriented man. I will connect some frameworks to what I do, but that's all there is to it. The second confession I want to make is that I'm no authority on, I would be speaking primarily on team coaching. I'm sorry.
Amit, you have shared your screen. You need to get that off, I think.
I thought I did something and...
No. This has been shared from Amit's computer. Yes, thank you.
Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, please.
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Thank you. So while I see people talk interchangeably about group and team coaching, I draw a very clear distinction between group and team coaching. So the session I'm going to be doing is primarily focused on team coaching. And by team coaching, I mean teams that are intact, that are single organization, and those that have a very specific need that they are trying to address. And as I will take you through, you will see what those goals were. So primarily, that is going to be my focus for the next 40 minutes or so. So when I'm working with team, I find a lot of resources of Meredith Belbin. I'm sure many of you would have heard of Belbin's team role inventories. There is a huge body of work that people who are working with teams can actually leverage, apart from just getting the people profiled on the team roles. And he said that no one is perfect, so no individual is perfect, but a team can be. And that is the opportunity that I, as a team coach, constantly try to explore, is to try and see how we can get the teams to become perfect. And the framework I use as a goal for motivating teams is the high performance team framework that I use extensively with teams. As Stephen Covey says, begin with the end in mind. So what is it that the end of this 1 hour, what is it that I would like to leave the participants with is to provide the participants a understanding of what team coaching entails and what elements contribute to its success. Basically, that's what I'm trying to do at the end of this session. And how I plan to achieve this, I am actually going to be taking you through 3 engagements that I've completed during my consulting practice. Little background, one of the focus areas of my consulting, one of the practice areas among the 6 practice areas we have, one of the practice areas is team effectiveness. And so all these interventions are from that practice. And I will share with you, why I'm bringing this up at this point of time. So the 3 engagements that I'm going to briefly take you through is, the first engagement is 2 founders in the service-based industry in India who started up a company. And after almost about 8 or 9 years of their functioning and being very successful, they were a pioneer in that industry that they started. They found a significant gap between them and the direct reports. And the one-line brief that was given to me by the CEO, one of the founders was the CEO, the other was the chief operating officer. The one-line brief given to me was, Inba, how can you create a mezzanine floor for these direct reports, which is in between where they are current and where they should be with the 2 of us. That was the one-line brief. The second engagement that I will take you through is an early startup business leadership team. At the time when I engaged with them, they were just about 4 years in the startup. They were all a set of senior managers who got out of a multinational company and started up this organization. And they were looking to achieve alignment, cohesiveness, collaboration, because they believed that they were still working as individual managers like they did back in their MNC days. And the third engagement that I'll take you through is a functional team, which is a multinational company, IT domain. And this functional team was desiring to transform itself into a high performance team. The leader of this team got enamored by the high performance team concept that I was talking to her during one of our usual meetings. And she wanted to take her functional team to achieve that goal. So these are the 3 engagements that I will take you through, post which I will come up with, what does it entail in terms of team coaching. Is that okay, Nitin? Can I move forward?
Yes, yes, Inba.
Okay. So before I start, let me make some disclosures. I've already made a couple in the beginning, but the disclosure I'm making are very specific to these 3 engagements. Now, I must confess that all 3 engagements that I'm using for this session were not started as team coaching ones, right? They were, as I told you, engagements under the team effectiveness practice area, wherein I primarily used OD methodologies. Many of you would be aware of the 4 stages, Bruce Tuckman's 4 stages of a group's development or a team's development, those kind of frameworks, or Patrick Lencioni's 5 dysfunctions of a team. So using more of OD methodologies, I was doing this. In the last couple of years, this whole aspect of team coaching caught my attention during one of the conversations that I was having with someone who was based in US and who is one of my LinkedIn connections. And I was talking to him, and in the discussion that came about, this whole concept of team coaching came up. And since then, last 2.5 years, I've been doing some amount of reading but I must tell you that there is very little
Inba, I think we lost you, or maybe we have lost Inba. Maybe his internet connection is giving some problem. So let's just wait for a few minutes and let him join in. So while Inba joins in, it would be useful if all of you could write. I'm sure all of you might be engagement in one or the other way in team coaching. If there's one question that you might want to ask in the end of the session to Inba, based on his experience, what would that be? You might want to write down that question.
Nitin, would you like to call him up on his mobile to check? Nitin, this is Mukesh. I just spoke to Inba. I think he got disconnected. He's trying to come back. Let's just wait for a minute or two.
Yeah, okay. Thanks.
So I've dropped a question for you, Nitin.
Okay, MG. I've received a couple of questions. I'll ask that as we go on. Inba, we are not able to hear you yet.
Can you hear me, Nitin?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Hello?
Yes, we can, Inba.
Thank you. Sorry, as usual, some internet. Yeah, some. Right. So as I was telling, as I got to read, this literature, I got to see a lot of elements that I was doing in my team effectiveness practice that were related to team coaching. And that is how in the last, 1 year or so, I started, coming out with a small framework. And actually currently right today, even though I'm not discussing that case, I have team coaching assignment going with a startup company based in US, whose leadership team is actually dispersed in 3 continents, the 2 continents, the North America, USA and Canada, and in India, in Bangalore and Delhi. And a total of 10 people, of which 4 are in India and the other 6 are in US, Canada. Through the virtual medium, I'm trying to work through them. This engagement is about 4 or 5 months old, and that is giving me a lot of rich perspectives and application experiences to what I'm doing. So these are some of the disclosures. Now let me dive into the first engagement. For some reason, it's not moving.
You might want to stop share and share again, Inba, at times.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. Oh, it's now moved many. Okay. Yeah. So the engagement number 1, which I told you was the founders attempting to bridge the gap between themselves.
Inba, we are not able to see your presentation. Your screen is not yet shared.
Okay. Is it visible now?
Yes, we can see. Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you.
you can see that now.
Yeah. So these were, founders. They had started a, service-based company out of Bangalore. They were pioneers in their space in the days that they started. And the 2 founders, the total team size was 10 people, out of whom 2 were the founders, and the balance 8 were people who had worked with them in their small corporate stints, or people whom they had recruited from the marketplace. And the CEO is a well-known person in Bangalore, and he's done a lot of work. And so he told me that this is my problem, and so I designed a 3-day residential workshop. As I told you, I was using my framework of team effectiveness practice. So I gave them a proposal for a 3-day residential workshop, wherein I used MBTI step 2, both at the individual and the team lenses. This thing. Let me just give you a small brief about what I actually did here. In any intervention that I do what is called as for any team intervention I do what is called as a team scan. Like you do an MRI scan for the body, I do a team scan for the team members. And this is nothing but a one-on-one, 1-hour discussion with each of the team members separately. And I have a set of exploration areas. I explore them. And when you explore the same areas with about 10 people, you come up with at least 4 or 5 common themes that are emerging. And based on those common themes is what I designed the 3-day. This was a 3-day residential workshop, but I've also done in 2 days. Certain things get cut short, but organizations are quite happy with even the outcomes of a 2-day workshop. Right? All the 10 team members, including the CEO and the COO, were profiled using MBTI Step 2. That is one instrument which I use extensively both in my individual coaching engagement and also in my team effectiveness practice. And so the very clearly what came out, let me just give you the top of the things, was that the team was skewed towards one or two quadrants of the possible four quadrants of the MBTI. So there were two quadrants which are absolutely not represented in that leadership team, which means those were the typical blind spots that the team was working with, number one. Number two, the team members had this kind of a deference attitude towards the founders. So even though they were in their area, they were subject matter experts, they knew the area much well, and they had great amount of experience, to push back at the founders was something that they were not very comfortable with. That was another thing that had to be looked into. And the third aspect was the team dynamics at the next level, which is the direct reports. I'm keeping the two founders out. And the direct reports of 8 people, itself there were about 3 kind of, if I may call, subgroups in that. So those were the issues that I came up with in my team scan. And so
Inba, have you moved on from this slide of engagement 1 or?
No, I'm still on engagement 1.
Okay.
I'm giving you some background details. If you think that is not required, I can move on to the next.
No. I was just wondering that is it your screen freeze issue again, or we are not able to see?
No, we are in engagement 1, right? So, so these were the things that came in. So what did I do in the workshop? I did a couple of things. One is I created, sufficient data in the workshop itself, and then showed that data to the team. That was one very important stuff. Like all of you who are doing individual coaching, you would create data using a 360 feedback mechanism or some profiling tool, and you would take that data to the coachee and present it to the coachee to have a look at and create insights. So you have to look at how do you create an insight for the team about the team dynamics, what's happening within the team. So when I presented to them the data that was emerging from the workshop, they began to realize some of these aspects. So secondly, what I did was I broke that 8 members of the 10-member team. I kept the founders out, broke that team into 2 sub-teams, and put them on a live project in the workshop itself. One team was tasked with coming up with ideas for business continuity, and we called it the business continuity plan team. And the second team was tasked with coming up with ideas for business growth, and they were called the business growth plan. Now, one of the confounding thing was, how do I connect the founders to this team? So I converted the founders into consultants. I made the coup into a consultant for the business continuity and made the CEO as a consultant for the business growth. And I said, these consultants are available to you, but they're available to you. This whole exercise was a 3-hour exercise. I said they're available to you only after the first 90 minutes. And they're available to you only for 15 minutes at a time. And you can have only 2 sessions with them. That brought about enormous team dynamics, and what came out, I think the CEO himself was surprised with what emerged. So basically, in short, that is the exercise. They went back with 2 very excellent plans. The CEO got to understand a few of the team members who could be looked at, growing further. And then for 6 months, I did one-on-one with each of those 8 team members to try and move them up the leadership ladder. I will just pause here for a minute or so. If anyone has any specific questions, we'll deal. Otherwise, I'll move on to the next engagement.
Thank you. I have a question. My name is Anant.
Yes, Anant.
Thanks a lot. What are the key parameters that you used for profiling? Because they'll not be, you can have a framework for team coaching, but then when you are actually doing a profiling of each people, you said you did a profile of each team member. So, what are the key parameters that you looked at for profiling?
No, so the profiling, I used only MBTI step 2. Both
Okay.
one was at an individual level. The MBTI step 2 gives you your preferences. Now, what you can do is you can also convert all the 10 individual profiles into what is called as a 5-team lenses. I don't have
Okay.
time to get into that, but those 5-team lenses give a great insight into what is happening to a team. And because of the exercise I did, the data was generated in the workshop for everyone to see. And when I put up the 5-team lenses one by one, they could relate to what the lenses were talking to them about.
Okay.
That's
Thank you.
that's how the insight at the team level was brought in.
Brought in. Okay. Thank you. Thanks a lot for sharing.
Most
So,
welcome.
Inba, one question that came in early
Yes.
was, and I don't know if you're going to answer that in your upcoming slides, but I'll ask that question since it already came in.
Yeah.
The question is, what's the framework for team success? Any specific method?
So you can refer to the high performance team concept, and there is a framework out there. But what I do is like, for example, this engagement which I'm talking about, very clearly the 3 parameters of success were discussed and finalized with the client. So I don't say this is a framework and against this I will rate. No. So very clearly the CEO and the COO told me, I asked them the question, what at the end, what will you say would be successful intervention? And they gave me 3 parameters. I asked for 3 parameters. If someone wants to give me more, fine, but I work with primarily top 3. That's been my practice. It's worked well for me.
And they are usually defined by the
client
CEO or board of the team.
Yes, absolutely, by the client, whoever is the client. Here the client was the CEO and the founders, the 2 founders. In another engagement you will see the functional leader. The 3rd engagement, the functional leader was a client. So it's defined by the client.
Okay. Have you seen what happens if there's a conflict between what client wants versus what team wants?
That's an interesting question. So what if such a conflict arises? I normally, as a facilitator, I bring this up with the team, and I say, I'm seeing this conflict. Are you guys able to see this conflict? And then that whole exploration leads the team to new insights and new this thing, but it gets kind of resolved one way or the other.
One question, Inba. In individual coaching, we always say the coach's journey.
Yes.
In team coaching, if the client were to determine the goals of the team, is it the team's journey, or is it we are driving the client's agenda on the team and the team knows it?
So that's a very, very interesting question. Let me attempt to give you my side of it. While the goal may have been identified by the founders, right? The team scan that I talked about, I would have, already explored that goal with each, because the goal discussion would have happened much before I get into the team scan mode. So a lot of what each individual team member feels about that goal is already available to me as the facilitator. So if I see a very significant conflict, then obviously I will have to resolve it. But in the 3 engagements that I have brought for this session, such a conflict did not arise. Okay. Or I didn't see that conflict. But very much possible. You do have a point. Very much possible.
Thank you.
Thanks, Inba. Let's go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. We have lost some time due to disturbances on my side. Okay. So the engagement number 2, this is a very interesting one. This is an IT startup business, about 8 people from a very prominent MNC organization left the company, just like how people how people started Infosys or Mindtree, similar fashion. And they left the company and they started this company. And I got involved with them when they were in their 3rd year of business, and where the CEO, one of the 8 people, they call themselves co-founders, not founders, co-founders. One of them, who was the CEO, had been, had known my work. So he connected and he talked about it. So what this team, I wouldn't even call this as a team. This though you should go and look up at the difference between a group and a team. I'm sure there were some sessions on group. I'm sure they must have done, but you can read something. There's a very clear difference between groups and teams. So these people were 8 of them, and 2 of them they had recruited at the senior level into the business leadership team. But 10 of them were working more like managers and more like group members. Each one was very focused on what they were wanting to do in their area, and very straight-jacketed, very narrowed vision, focused only on that. And they were beginning to have challenges in the 3rd year of their operation. So they were able to give me only 2 days, and so we had a 2-day residential workshop. But I must tell you, the first day went up till, it started at 9 a.m. It went up till 2 a.m. in the morning of the following day, with couple of breaks in between for dinner and all that. And next day we again started at 9 a.m. to conclude it by 6 p.m. So that's actually about 2.5 days, right? And here, basically, the issue was not able to, each one was so focused in their area, they forgot that they were actually, they had to take this business forward together. So in terms of, coming together, aligning towards a common objective, or let us say there is a client, the client need, this is what I can do, these are the challenges, how can we, all those are becoming problem. And the underlying factor that I sensed in the team scan was trust issue. So this basically had to address that. Once the trust issue was addressed, the 3 elements that they wanted, alignment, cohesiveness, and collaboration, came about. And here again, I used MBTI step 2 and followed it up with one-on-ones every month with every team member for 6 months. And post that, actually they came up with their own set of frameworks to work effectively as a team. And 2 years later, they came back to me to take them towards the journey of a high performance team. So that's the engagement number 2. Again, as I told you, it was on an OD methodology platform. I'll just stop for a couple of minutes. Any specific question in this, or we can move on?
Inba, hi, this is Rekha here. I had a question here.
Yes, Rekha, go ahead.
In both the engagements, just as an observation that we are looking at, you used MBTI as an assessment intervention tool here. Why only MBTI and not any other assessment? And if so, which are the other assessments one can use here?
Very good question, Rekha. The first answer is very simple. I'm a certified MBTI step 2 person. So my understanding of the instrument and what it can do is far, far greater to other possible instruments. And I will tell you why MBTI specifically. There are other instruments for profiling individuals, right? And possibly teams. MBTI, as you all know, is preference-based tool. Most of the other tools are trait-based tools. And traits, as we all know, can undergo change based on the circumstances, based on the environment that you're put in, traits can undergo change. Whereas generally research has shown that preferences are very unlikely to undergo change unless you have some life-changing experiences. So one is my in-depth knowledge of MBTI, and I use step 2, not the step 1. And
Sure.
secondly is the fact that it deals with preferences and not traits. I hope I've answered your question.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Inba here.
Yes.
You are referring OD intervention. So
Yes.
I'm not that familiar with OD, while I understand at a high level. Could you please help me understand how is OD different from a pure play coaching intervention?
So this is where I'm exploring. That's what I told you. When I started reading about team coaching, right, I saw a lot of elements that I was working in the practice area of team effectiveness, which I was doing on an OD methodology platform, are very, very similar to the literature that I am beginning to see in team coaching. So that's an area, current area of my exploration. And, possibly it is also prompting me to write a paper on exactly the question that you have asked me. But I can tell you this, I'm having a slide on that, and possibly post that slide. If this question still remains in your mind, we could have a further discussion on this.
Thank you very much. I'll wait for it.
Yeah. Going to the third engagement, this, as I told you, was a functional leadership team, and I had already done some work with them a couple of years prior to this happening. And the functional leader, she was, because she knew of my working for enabling teams to get into high performing team status, she wanted her team to get into this. Again, a team of 10 people. 10 to 12 people is a very ideal size to work with from my own experiences. And she was able to give me 2 days, and again went through the same team scan and all those, which I'm not going to go up. And at the end of day 2, they came up with a roadmap to get into high performing team. And all that they wanted was, they wanted me to facilitate half-a-day meetings for them at the end of 90 days and 180 days. And at the end of 180 days, they were almost 80% of where a high performance team must be. They were almost there. So that's the engagement number 3, an IT multinational India Development Center, and this was a functional team. Any questions on this before I move on to the most important of the slides?
Go ahead, Bobby. Ask.
Yeah, Inba, Bobby here.
Yes, Bobby.
My question is, what I understand from the 2 examples you have stated is that there is an element of profiling, and then there's the element of the analysis of the profiling, and then arriving at a thought process as to how the group is structured or behaving, or what are the pluses and what you see are the areas could be for consideration in the group. Given that, do you think it is worthwhile that instead of one individual coach taking a team coaching engagement, if 2 coaches who can complement each other take an engagement jointly, then it will be more impactful for the client?
I would believe that it will be so if we have 2 complementary coaches working together. In fact, I have done a couple of engagements where I have had where I have partnered with some of my professional colleagues whom I know, and and done it. But sometimes I have seen the client themselves are not very keen. For example, this engagement number 3, engagement number 2, and even engagement number 1, the client was very clear. They said, Inba, we just want you to handle it. Can you handle it? And if you saw, the team size is 10 people, right? But you bring about a very valid point. And I have done workshops, having some professional colleague and myself do, where we, kind of break the workshop into component sessions, and then we say, okay, I will handle these sessions, you handle these sessions. It's a very, very rich methodology. However, one needs to get the buy-in of the client to do such a thing. But can it be done in team coaching? Absolutely. And it will be, in my opinion, it will be a wonderful, outcome, a much richer outcome than what a single coach could do.
Thanks, Inba. I just had a doubt. Thanks for clarifying.
Most welcome. So going back to Belbin, he says a team is not a bunch of people with job titles, but a congregation of individuals, each of whom has a role that is understood by the other members. This may look like a very simple statement, but let me tell you, as someone for almost a decade now, I must have done in the team effectiveness practice close to about 18 assignments, all either functional or business leadership teams. Let me tell you, this in none of the teams at that stage of the team scan was this understanding of a team available to the members. In fact, all the teams, all the 18 odd engagements that I've done, and the current one which I'm doing, globally dispersed team, they are not teams, they are groups. And that's where I told you in the beginning that there is a significant difference between groups and teams. And so they were all groups. And I think anyone who is interested in getting into the area of team coaching would do well to actually study the body of work that is available with Meredith Bilbin. He's been doing it for decades, and there's a huge amount. So I just thought I will, bring this up as a matter of acknowledging his contribution to this whole area. Now, in preparation for it, as I told you, last couple of years, I've been reading about team coaching, and I found a very interesting article from the Center for Creative Leadership. And they say the 5 attributes that are required for successful team coach are the ones that you see on the screen. The first one is a focus on the whole. And this is very important, right? While in individual coaching, we are focused on the individual, in team coaching, we have to be focused on the whole. And the whole has got 3 component parts. One is the individual, one is the team, and third one is the organization. So even if when I'm working with one-on-one with the team member, I'm not working on his or her areas of development. I am working only in those areas that will enhance the effectiveness of the team. That is the areas, his or her role, that will enhance the effectiveness of the team. So that's a very fine difference between what we would do in an individual coaching engagement and in a team coaching scenario. So, and one needs to understand the linkages between the individual and the team, and the team and the organization. Let me bring one very interesting fact. When I do a team scan, the same team member will share things with me which he or she will not share it in front of the team when we are going through the exercise. There is a confidentiality. I cannot bring that data onto the table, but how do I as a facilitator ensure that that data emerges through the discussions or through the exercises that I design for the team becomes the crucial factor. And the person who talked to me about it will realize that Inba is doing this because this is what I told him, but it will not be public knowledge to the other member. So this whole focus on the whole is a very, very critical success factor for a team coach. The second one is systems thinking. And I realized the importance of systems thinking. Not that, all of us have, read Peter Senge's system thinking theory and all that. But as I told you, I realized it only when I attended their program on coaching from a systems perspective, almost about 7 years back. And the systems thinking is very important because any element of change within a team will impact the system at a larger level, or any change in the system will impact the team. So for a team coach to be able to have that perspective is very, very critical. Third one, and the most difficult one, especially for those of you who are engineers, is a comfort with ambiguity. For engineers, 2 plus 2 is 4. For people in the social sciences discipline, 2 plus 2 can be what you want it to be. That ability to be comfortable with ambiguity. For example, I'll give you this thing. You can never be sure how a team dynamics is going to work out, right? But you know the goal that this team has to go. You cannot go with a very definitive plan into a workshop mode. So you have to be patient. You have to see what is emerging, and hence the degree of comfort you have with dealing with ambiguity becomes a very important attribute. The fourth one is the ability to set boundaries. It's very critical that, like I told you, what the participant tells in a one-on-one, I cannot use it in a team context. So those boundaries, what are those boundaries? Individual boundaries or boundaries within the subgroups that I talked about. Those are very, very important for the team coach to understand, to realize, and to leverage it. And finally, is a team coach needs to take a long-term view. If a client is coming to you and telling you that in the next 6 months, please get my team into a high performance team, that would be a task which you will be setting yourself for failure if you take in that time frame. It's a much longer term view. So business as usual has to continue and the team has to be focused on that. So as a team coach, you have to be more tolerant, more patient, and allow time for the team. For example, this global business leadership team that I'm working with, we are running almost 2 months behind the original schedule that we had finalized. But as a coach, it's okay with me because I know that they have things to deliver to their customers. They have come up with some challenges. So my appreciation of what they need to do on a day-to-day basis is paramount to the success of this. Just stop here for a minute if you have got any clarifications. Otherwise, I'll move on to what is possibly my last slide.
One question, Inba, this is MG. How do you measure the needle movement between prior to coaching the team and after coaching the team? Do you measure it immediately after the workshop is done, or when do you do it?
No. It cannot be done after the workshop, because the workshop just surfaces all the things that the team can see, and the team and then sets on the path of identifying some areas and action planning. I didn't get into those details. It is only post their implementation of that, which can be 6 months, 9 months, and in some cases it has been 1 year, that you can actually, you don't have to see, the team sees it. As far as the client is concerned, he has already, as I mentioned earlier on, he has already given you the 3 parameters by which they will assess whether this whole intervention is successful. So how far is the team to achieving those 3 would be giving you and the team itself a very good insight as to how far they have come.
So the measurement will be done by the client.
Absolutely. It is the client who decides what are the areas that will be taken for measurement. If I have a perspective on that, I will share that perspective with the client. But despite that, if the client were to say that no, Inba, this is what we want, I will go with the client.
Thank you.
Thank you, MG. So on the last try, I'm going to, as I told you, my my liking for top 3. So apart from the skills that are required for one-on-one coaching, which I'm not going to go into because I'm talking to experienced coaches, the top 3 skills that would be critical for anyone wanting to get into a team coaching scenario is designing team interventions. This comes from an OD background. So as I told you, the team scan that one does should be able to convert those data into what would be the most effective intervention design, because it is in the intervention that all data is going to be created, which can then become a mirror to the team, not only to the team but also individuals in the team. And the data about individuals is given in the one-on-ones. It is not given in the team scenario. So that is a very, very critical skill that anyone wanting to be in the area of team coaching needs to have. The second one is sensing and interpreting group dynamics. I'm sure most of you are aware. When you work with a group, there are, like they say proverbially, wheels within wheels moving within the group. So how good are you at sensing and interpreting such group dynamics becomes a very key skill for you to operate as a team coach. And finally is facilitation skills. How good a facilitator are you? And what is your level of facilitating a group to a particular given goal, right? Because what is not in your control is what is going to emerge in the workshop. You design the workshop, but what will actually emerge in the workshop is not totally within your control. So how do you, as a skillful facilitator, allow what is emerging in the workshop to emerge and yet take the team towards that goal that you have identified is coming under the facilitation skills. These, to me, based on my experience, I'm telling you, these 3 skills are very, very critical for team coaching. I'm open to discussions, any questions I can answer, or any perspectives on what you have heard. My apologies, I think we lost about 5 minutes in between due to some poor connectivity. But I am, Nitin, I am done with what I wanted to bring to this group.
Thanks, Inba. Thanks a lot.
Hi, I have a question. This is Ravi.
Yes, Ravi, go ahead.
How do you distinguish between ambiguity and lack of clarity?
Very good question. Lack of clarity is individual based, whereas ambiguity is more in the environment that you're working in, is how I understand it.
Okay, thanks.
Did I explain that?
Yeah, I think, what I understand from what you shared is one element of the distinction. Perhaps there are more.
There can be many more, but what is critical to me between ambiguity and clarity is one is individual and the other one is more in the environment.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, thank you.
So Inba, one question that is coming up in the group is that, can you talk about some of the challenges that you have faced? In your description, it seemed very smooth sailing.
Yeah, obviously when you make a presentation, a lot of the, the other background things are, kind of lost. The biggest challenge is, being able to establish very quickly a trust, not only with the individuals, but the team as a whole. As I told you, there are 3 relationships that a team coach has to handle. One is with the individual team members, one is with the team as a whole, and the third one is the team and the organization. And and all these relationships will work effectively only when you're able to establish the trust factor. And I think one of the sessions was covering that. And so I'm hoping you all already have some amount of. That's the biggest challenge. How quickly can you establish that trust? It is the biggest challenge.
Okay, great.
I have a question, Inba. This is Mukesh.
Yes, Mukesh.
You talked about using OD skills also in the team coaching work.
Yes.
So if some of us coaches who do not have HR background and we do not have those OD skills, are we still able to go for team coaching?
That's a good question. Someone said, can we have a partnership? I think you must look for someone who has OD skills. And when you work with a partner like that in team coaching over a period of time and with some amount of your own reading, you can pick up.
Okay. Thank you.
Mukesh, are you the ex-Wipro guy?
Yes. Same Mukesh.
Hey, thank you so much. The participants should know that me and Mukesh first met when I was in a project in Guwahati, Assam, and he was with Wipro. Thank you, Mukesh.
In
Thank you.
late 80s.
Yes, 80s, early 80s. Yeah, thank you. And we have been threatening to meet each other.
Yeah, for quite some time now.
Yeah. Thank you,
Inba,
Mukesh.
this is Rekha here. I have a question.
Yes, Rekha, go ahead.
When you spoke about the team scan that is done as a part of the diagnostic in the beginning, right?
Yes.
Where individually as well, we connect with each one of them. And when we come back after we are done with the team scan of the field study, then we share the inferences with the larger group, right? So is there any specific methodology that did you use to share those inferences and insights? Can you throw some light on that?
Yeah, one is as a team coach or even as an OD consultant, Rekha, I never use the word diagnostics.
Okay.
And that is why you would have seen me using the word team scan.
Sure.
Scan is much more in my, words do have a, impact on how people perceive things. So I'm very careful in using the words, number one. Number two is, yes, once the team scan is over, right, I collate the whole thing and present it to the entire team and say, this is what, and I only deal with, as I told you, the common themes that have emerged. I don't deal with any specific issues that were raised in those one-on-one. I just, the 4 to 5 common themes, and even those themes are written in my own language and explained in my own language. So no one can identify, the authorship from where that is coming.
Okay, sure.
And this sharing happens before we get into the workshop.
All right, understood.
Inba, Bobby here. Just one more question.
Yes, Bobby.
See, in a normal one-on-one coaching, my philosophy has been that you focus on the strengths of the employee and not going on the past.
Okay.
The team coaching, would it be also that philosophy you think based on your experience will work? Focusing on what is good with the team and how do you expand that to achieve the team goal and then skip the past?
Thank you, Bobby. Very good question. In all my interventions, whether it be individual, team, or organizational, I follow the appreciative inquiry principles.
Okay.
One question from me, MG here. The MBTI step 2. When do you time this? Is it at the time after the
just before the workshop? Once I have delivered the team scan presentation to the entire team, got to know their, see, when you are presenting to them, MG, you will get a feel for whether those 5 themes are, hitting home or not, right? Now, once you complete that, and once the client says, hey, Inba, this is great. Yeah, we want to go ahead with the workshop. Between that and the actual workshop is when, the MBTI takes place, because I also need time to, go through each of the MBTI reports and create the 5 lenses using the individual report. So that takes time. So immediately after, just after and before the workshop is when I do the MBTI step 2.
Sorry, I didn't catch it. You first do the one-on-one discussions to do the
That
team.
is part of the team scan.
Yeah, that's
the
right.
team scan, report is presented face to face to the team.
Okay.
Post that, if the team signs up and says, yes, we want to go ahead, then I go in for MBTI step 2 profiling.
Okay. That is the timing. Okay. Thank you.
One question, Inba. So
Yes.
these 5 lenses that you're talking about, do you have a set of 10, 15 lenses and then you
No.
5 out of them?
No, MBTI gives you these 5 lenses. The lenses are from MBTI. They are not my lenses.
Oh, so the 16 profiles that MBTI proposes, you pick, 4 or 5 out of them. Is that how it happens?
No. The team lenses are very different from the profiles, individual 16 profiles that you're talking of. The 16 MBTI types are individual types. When you combine, let us say there are 10 members, when you can combine the 10 members individual profiles into 5 lenses that MBTI gives.
Okay.
It's called a fountain lens, a quadrant lens, the dynamic lens. So it will give you different facets of how the team will operate.
Oh, okay. So MBTI has suggested these kind of ways to look, these kind of perspectives to look at the profiles.
Yeah, if anyone is certifying himself or herself on step 2, this is part of the certification process.
Okay.
Inba, hi. I have one question.
Yes.
So, what are the other frameworks that you can use, which are like MBTI? I mean, that you can suggest, because suppose if your framework does not fit this business, this case particular thing, like so, can you share any information that you would like to share about that?
No, I'm a little confused. I didn't get your name, please. Anand, yeah. So Anand, I'm a little confused. You're talking of a framework, or are you talking of a profiling instrument? MBTI is a profiling.
Yeah.
It's not a framework. High performance team is a framework.
Okay. So, okay. Okay.
So you have many profilers, as I told you in the initially itself. There are trait-based profilers like DISC and all that. And I'm not, knowledgeable in depth on those. So it will not be appropriate for me to talk. But I can talk about MBTI step 2 because not only am I certified, I'm using it for the last decade or so.
Okay.
Inba, there's a question on my side. This is Mani.
Yes,
you
Mani.
talked about team coaching or a single corporate entity. What if it's a group of moms or group of entrepreneurs? How do you?
So that will come under group coaching. I haven't yet had an opportunity to do that kind of coaching, but I would say that the processes might be the same. The goals might be very different. Like, let us say there is a group of, you said, group of moms. Let us say these are moms who are, let's take a hypothetical case. These are all moms who are, the mothers of children studying in a school. And the school is, presenting some workshop on how to become an effective mom or something like that. Then you need to get the articulation from the group. What does the group wants to do? And there may be some individual needs. So that's where, but I haven't done any till date. I haven't had a request, and hence I'm very ill-equipped to really answer that question, Mani.
Okay, thanks a lot, Inba, for a very, very interesting and experience sharing session. I'm sure people would have received a lot from practitioners than just theory. While I'm sure people may have a lot of questions, in the interest of time, I would request, in case you have any questions, please drop it down to the Bengaluru ICF@gmail.com. And we will reach out to Inba and share the questions with him and request him to answer those questions in a manner which can be more shared with everybody else. Thanks a lot, Inba, once again, and thanks everybody for joining in.
Thank you, Nitin, and thanks everyone. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.